Welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO podcast. My guest is Ted Ventre, owner of Hively Landscapes, Dover Township, Pennsylvania. That is South Central PA. A 55-year-old business that he purchased in 2010. It is $4 million in revenue, 30 employees, and high-end residential with a very unique service, a total service, he calls it total care, that he will tell you about. He started off in super high-end on Long Island, and then he went into commercial and really did quite a bit of work in commercial. And he made the transition really intentionally back to residential. And he has a very specific, intricate approach to customer service. It really, it's just through and through in his culture, and you'll learn all about that and some unique strategies he has that for his clients. We also get into a little bit of some hobbies. He does sports, and we share very unique sport activity, or at least experience in common. We'll tell you about that. He's been very active in the PLNA, where I will be keynoting this winter, and he talks about the benefits of that to his business. He has a unique approach to delegating, or a forced approach to delegating, because he's hired many people that have skills that he just doesn't have. And so he really sees himself as a facilitator, a lead from behind. And as this podcast goes on, you learn more and more about that. And so let's, without further ado, jump right in. And here's Ted Ventre. Ted, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you very much for having me.
This is excellent. Let's jump right in. Tell the audience who you are, name of your company, and what you do.
My name is Ted Ventre. I'm the owner of Hively Landscapes. We're located in South Central Pennsylvania, and we serve the South Central PA market and Northern Maryland. And we are a residential design, build, and maintenance company.
Yeah, and if you mind sharing, what's your revenue? How long have you been in business?
So the business has existed since 1968, so a little over 55 years, which is really cool. Very proud of that. Same name, same location. I have owned it since 2010 when I purchased it from the original owner, Glenn Hively. And currently, our revenue is about $4 million a year.
Now, you've owned two businesses with different people's names. Tell us about, let's go back to the beginning for a bit. It's sort of an interesting story. How did you get into this?
So to go way back, I got into landscaping. I was living on the east end of Long Island. I had moved up there for a girl who's no longer in the picture, but I'm thankful for her because she led me to my current wife. And while I was living there, I was renting a room from a guy that owned a very high-end residential landscaping company. And I was working doing other things, but to make extra money on the weekends, I started helping him in his large tree nursery. And he taught me a lot of things, how to operate equipment, the ins and outs of irrigation. Long story short, I liked it so much, I started working on a crew for him. And that led me to the industry. That's sort of how I ended up. So when my current wife and I moved back to Maryland, which is where I'm originally from, I started working for a commercial landscape company there. And when we moved to Pennsylvania to settle down finally, I did the same thing. I moved to another commercial landscaping company. And I was working for this commercial landscaping company here in York, and I had a lot of questions about why we were doing things the way we were. I could see the writing on the wall. It was not going well. And so I asked a lot of questions, and one day they let me go because they thought I was asking too many questions. And so I incorporated my first business, Cabot Landscaping, and that's probably what you were referring to.
Yeah.
And that's that was glamorously named after the road we lived on. I incorporated that, and it was just like a mow, blow, and go, kind of company. And I spent that first summer season after being let go, soliciting business. I had a non-compete, so I did not violate the non-compete, but I went around and I looked for business. And about a year later, the company that I had worked for pulled out of the market, and I got almost all of their clients locally just by being in the right place at the right time. And that's how I started. I grew that business over the next 3 years or so. And then I got introduced to Glenn. He wanted to retire. I wanted to expand my service offerings. I didn't do any residential installation or anything like that he did. And it was sort of a perfect match. And it took us almost another year to wrangle the details, and I purchased the business.
And so you're like an animal that takes over the host, and you got rid of your old name and company?
So Cabot is actually, we're an LLC, Cabot Landscaping LLC, doing business as Hively Landscapes. So we trade under the Hively name because it had a very good, very long tenured reputation in the local market. So for about, let's say almost 4 years, I ran both businesses. Our maintenance mowing side was branded as Cabot, and everything else was Hively. And finally, that just got confusing for customers, and we started to phase out of commercial, and it just didn't make sense to have both brands on the road. Yeah. And so we phased everything to Hively, which was the recognized brand in the market. And our trucks, if you look at our trucks, they all still say, operated by Cabot Landscaping, because they're all titled in that business name. So yeah, it was I learned a lot. I had no idea what I was doing when I started, which is pretty funny to see where I've come. So,
well, you've really come pretty far, obviously. So you have a GM now that runs your business. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when I purchased Hively, it was, to use a phrase that I've heard you use before, it was a lifestyle business. So the former owner, the business was located on a property that he owned where he lived. It was a 130-acre farm. I've since pared it down to just 30 acres where we operate the business. But he lived here on the property. I'm sorry? Yeah.
You know there's contractors that run out of 2 acres, 3 acres.
So we operate the business out of just about 4 acres of buildings and ground, and the rest of it is agriculture. Gotcha. So we have a tenant farmer that cuts the hay, and there's some soy and corn and things like that. And then Glenn also did some nursery propagation because that was how he got into the business. That was his family's trade when he started back in 1968. And so there are some areas that are still lined out, and I just have left them as big, beautiful places to go walk around under nice big trees. So when I purchased the business, like I was saying, it was a lifestyle business for Glenn. It did a very good business. It had an excellent reputation, but it paid his mortgage. He had a nice big camper. He took the winters off. He even laid off his sales team in the wintertime, which blew my mind. Yeah. It facilitated the lifestyle that Glenn wanted, and he was satisfied. When I purchased the business, it was doing just a little over $1 million a year, and that's all he needed. I needed more than that. I assumed some debt to buy the business, as you can imagine. I don't live on the property. So I've got my own lifestyle to support. I needed to collect a salary, or else my wife wouldn't let me do this. So I had to change a lot of things. And in doing that, we changed how the business was managed. I purchased the business. There was an office manager who was very skilled, wearing all the hats, HR, receivables, payables, all the things. And when she wanted to retire after almost 25 years with the company, and she was like my right hand, she knew more than me when I bought the business. And when she wanted to retire, I started looking for her replacement. And I found somebody who I knew from another industry and hired her to be the new office manager, thinking that, things would sort of be the way they are. I would be the de facto GM. I have an operations guy, and I have an office manager. And I hired Billy Joe, and very quickly and very apparently, she had skills that I could really benefit from. I'm a big picture guy. I am not a details guy. I describe it this way. I know how to get to the mountain or I see the mountain I want to get to, I need help with the planning and the procedure to get to that mountain. And Billy Joe Maisel, our general manager, that's what she excels at. She is a process person from way back. She loves numbers. And, it's interesting. She's not the owner. She has a completely different rapport with the crew than I do. And than I think that I could ever have.
Yeah.
That's changed a little bit as I have removed myself from daily operations. I'm more approachable for people, but I'm still the owner.
Yeah.
And so, Billy Joe has really grown into this role, and she did literally grow into it. She just saw things that needed done, assumed the responsibility, started helping me hire, then started hiring on her own for people that are reporting directly to her. And that's kind of how it evolved. And so we made it official last year. Maybe it was 22 years run together ever since COVID. We officially gave her the title of general manager, and I have stepped back almost completely from day-to-day operations. And
Does
it's
she
been
have does she have any ghost ownership or profit sharing or?
So she has a little bit, if we do well, we share. We do a bonus structure with the entire company. So from production all the way up. And it's interesting you asked that question. I'm actually having lunch with my accountant tomorrow to discuss exactly that for her, because I think that if I want to continue this model, I need to make that a little bit, I need to put that in writing. I need to make that something that is something that everybody in the business can look forward to and understand.
What do you mean, everybody?
Management staff. So if they meet their metrics, hit their goals, do the things they're supposed to, that they are rewarded. It's a lot of things that you talk about all the time. Yeah. Purposeful rewards to get the actions that you want from people.
Okay. What's your vision for the business? Where's it going?
The vision for the business. So, I think long term, the vision for the business is that it provides a stable, structured way for anyone who comes in here, regardless of where they enter the business, to be able to grow, to have something to aspire to. And that sounds kind of vague, and I struggle with that a little bit, to be completely honest. But that's really important to me. I want people to have a place where they know that they can stay as long as they choose to stay. And we have a very good tenure across all of our employees, whether they're managers or production personnel. We tend to hang on to people. We're sticky. And it's because we treat people fairly and we give people opportunity, and we give everyone education opportunities. And I want to make sure that that is part of our business going forward, even if I'm not here, saying that every day or every week. So that's really important to me. As far as our outward vision, like how we describe ourselves to customers, we are our biggest focus. Our saying around here is we are a customer service company that happens to be good at landscaping. Customer service is first and foremost. And I know nobody starts their day saying, well, whatever, Mr. Customer, I don't care. I don't care what the customer thinks. We're just going to go out and try and make a couple bucks. But we really own it. Everybody really owns it. We talk about that white glove service. We don't say no to people. We just ask more questions to help them understand and help us understand why they're asking for what they're asking for and how can we give it to them. And, we can't always give them what they want, especially for the price that they think they can get it for. And I view that as part of customer service as well. It's respect for the customer and respect for us to say, I'm really sorry, but that's not something that we can achieve where you will be satisfied, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, and we will be able to be a profitable business. And so we're going to have to part ways. And we found that that's really works for us, because it allows us to put the cards on the table right away. Our reputation sort of precedes us. People know that we're going to do exactly what we say we're going to do. And if we screw something up, and we screw things up, of course, we stand behind it 100%. You don't get to be in business for 55 years unless you behave that way.
Yeah. you have a concept called total care, which is one of the things that makes you unique. So what is that, and how is that different from somebody else who says that they're full service?
So we sort of took the commercial mentality of a contracted maintenance and we tailored it to fit a residential mindset. And what we do, I think the thing that sets us apart is that we require a contract. So if you're going to have these certain services, there's a certain number of services that we have to visit your property at least 8 times per year, 1 monthly visit. So, and keep in mind, we're seasonal. So people in Florida are like, what, only 8 times? But we're seasonal. So we only have about 10 months of the year where we can effectively do real work.
Yeah.
We've got 4 inches of snow on the ground right now, trying desperately to melt. So you have to have 8 monthly visits at a minimum. Lawn care. So that's a separate service. Spring and fall cleanups. And what we've done is we've built that into a contract package. We bill the customer once a month. It's a preset number. They know exactly at the beginning of the relationship, they know exactly what they're going to get. And then we have horticulturalists. We have one-man crews, one-woman crews in some cases, that go out and do the detail work. Some people will call it gardening. Some people just call it details.
Yeah.
And we go out and do that kind of detail work. And then we have larger crews that will come in and do the spring and fall cleanups, the seasonal pruning. And then we have, of course, our lawn care technicians that come and do lawn care, aeration, overseeding, that sort of thing. And so that package, and it's interesting, you know, I'm involved with the state association, and I think we'll get to this later, but I talk to a lot of people in the residential space, and not many people do that kind of contract with their clients. And I don't understand why. It is secure revenue for us. Our contracts, our customers can lock in. They know what they're going to be paying for the year for them to maintain it. Our sales team will go out and inspect the property periodically, visit with the homeowner, say, hey, you know, we've noticed this. We think we should tweak the plan or the contract this way to give the customer what they want. And it's that kind of back and forth, that customer service. And that carries all the way down to our crews. That customer service has made this service really sticky. It's growing very quickly for us. And it is, you know, the business is all about margin, right? It's a good margin business.
No margin, no mission.
Right. No margin, no mission. Exactly. And I would rather work for the really picky homeowner who understands exactly why they're paying us what they're paying us than I would go and work for 10 warehouses that don't really care and are never quite satisfied.
Yeah. So just so I'm clear, how many visits to a property a month do you make in total?
It varies. So we have some where we only go from a landscaping, like a strictly landscaping perspective. So weeding, pruning, deadheading, that sort of thing. We have some properties where we only go once a month. They tend to be a little bit smaller. Our technicians can cover more ground.
Yeah.
But we have some properties where we're there every week. But the really nice thing about it is frequently, well, all of these have lawn care. And our lawn care technicians are all over, and our routes are pretty dense.
Yeah.
They've got eyes on these properties. Even if a gardener is not there, the lawn care tech may see something, goes to our software system, enters a note into the system that's attached directly to the property and says, hey, I was driving by Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house and I noticed that XYZ. The salesperson sees that, or the account manager sees that, and they will make sure that that gets dealt with. Whether it's a phone call to the customer saying, hey, we saw something, or whether it's a technician just stopping by to see what it is, get a set of eyes on it, and maybe handle it right then. All of these contracts have a little bit of leeway in them that allows us to do that. So a question we get all the time is, well, what about pest control? Or, you know, do I have to pay extra if you need to treat my roses? Well, no, because we're going to build. We know you have roses on the property, so we're building in the time and the material to handle what typically pops up. Now, if it's a huge issue, we're going to have a conversation. There might be a change order or a work order where we just go and do a one-time service in addition to the contract. But typically, the contracts are built so that they can handle some variability, and it allows us to really provide a very in-depth service that is sort of passive. The customer doesn't see it. The way we talk about it is our goal is when you come home, Jeffrey, your house is going to look the same every time you pull in the driveway, no matter what. We're just going to handle it. Sometimes there's a big issue and we got to call you and say, hey, a tree fell in the backyard. How do you want us to proceed?
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, we can just take care of it and you have no idea.
So do you offer lifetime warranties on your installs if they're a maintenance client?
Yes. So if we provide the material, install the material, and have a maintenance contract from day one, we will warranty that material as long as we have that maintenance contract in effect. So we have some customers that we've had maintenance contracts for 10 years, almost as long as I've owned the business. And yeah, we replace a couple plants here and there if we miss something, if we don't catch it before the plant fails.
Yeah. You didn't tell me that, but I had a feeling you were going to say yes to that question.
It's on our website. So, we call it the endless warranty.
There you go. I like it. Like endless summer, endless love. I wanted to ask you a question. Oh, but if it's an annual, you only cover that for 1 year.
No, that's the other thing that's on our website is our terms and conditions, and there's a long list of things that are subject to conditions. So, yeah, that's the tough thing with this industry, with any industry really, I think, but especially landscaping, is that variability. There are so many factors that no one can control. And that, I think, goes back to customer service. I think that's why we have such long-lasting relationships with our clients, because we're honest with them. We're not going to just keep replacing something and have them get fed up because the thing keeps dying. We're going to, at some point early on, say, this isn't working, and there's probably a couple reasons why. This is what we think. Why don't we try this instead? And it's just about having a frank conversation and being, upfront, honest with yourself and with the customer. It just creates this loyalty that it's really deep. It's very deep. And, we talk about this constantly in our weekly crew meetings, in our sales meetings. We're always talking about this mindset and this mentality. And so everybody, even the guy that runs the weed whacker, he feels empowered to say something, like go to his crew leader and say, hey, I saw this doesn't look right. This didn't look like this last time we were here. Should we say something? And when you have that kind of buy-in from your staff, the customer can feel it. The customer recognizes that. And that's really valuable. It's really important.
So did that evolve over time, or was that there from the beginning? And if it was, how long does it take a new employee to get on board?
I think the Hively brand, already had the reputation for doing the right thing, sourcing the best material, having innovative designs, not cookie cutter. You can spot one of our designs, and I'm biased, but you can drive through a neighborhood and you can see one of our designs because it's not the same as everybody else's. So that there was some of that already there. And Glenn Hively, it was his name on the business. He stood behind that. And, with few exceptions, he was going to do what was right for the customer, because that ends up being what's right for the brand. I come from a sales background. I've sold real estate. I've done a lot of different things, and I've always had that customer service mindset. So I think I brought that with me and sort of enforced what was already here, or reinforced what was already here. And I think to answer your last question, how long does it take somebody to get on board? It's typically pretty quick because we're really deliberate about who we hire. Yeah. We don't just, even if we desperately need bodies, which sometimes we desperately need bodies, we're going to be really picky. We're not just going to hire somebody because they can walk in here on time. They need to have the right mindset. They need to be willing to be challenged and step up to that challenge eagerly. And if you can't do that, then we really don't want you to work with us. So what's the old tired saying, slow to hire, quick to fire?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be quick to fire. And to avoid that, we're very careful about who we hire. And so new hires tend to get on board pretty quickly with our mindset, with our attitude.
Okay. But I don't know if you answered this before, but you started off in commercial and you made this, and that's what you know, and you made this wholesale switch to residential, and which you didn't know as well. And then at some point you just had to say, okay, no more commercial. I mean, there must have been some stress in that. And why did you do that?
So, remember, I came up in the business. I'm not formally trained. I didn't go to school for design or for landscape contracting or anything like that. I learned it all. And the very first exposure I had was back in 2000 or so, out on the east end of Long Island, in the Hamptons, where money is literally not an object, working for a high-end design build company where there was no hurdle to doing absolutely what needed to be done correctly. I mean, the things that we did, Jeffrey, would blow your mind. $1 million installations, like on a house that, might get used 6 weeks out of the year. And when you're exposed to that, like, there is no wrong, there's only one way to do it. You have to do it the right way, because that's what the customer is paying for, and they are paying a ton of money. So that was my first experience with the landscape industry. I kind of thought that's what everybody did. Then I went to commercial, where we were working, and these are good companies. I'm not bad mouthing the companies at all. It's just a different consumer. They had a different customer. They're throwing up 6-pack townhouses, and you gotta sod the front, seed the back, put in the street trees, do your shrub packaging, get out. Because if you don't do that quickly, you're eating into your margin. So I got to see both sides of that. And why would I want to fight for that margin? Be hounding my guys to go faster, move quicker, buy cheaper material that looks terrible. Why would I want to do that when I can create a relationship with you, the customer, help you understand the value of going slowly, being deliberate, taking time? We're going to start with this total care contract, and we're going to build it this way, because your budget is, let's say your budget is $15,000 for the year. We're only going to be able to do this much for that $15,000. I understand that your goal is this. Let us show you what we can do this first year. Next year, we're going to do these things because we'll have this part under control. Third year, we're going to do these things. And 3-4 years in, you've got everything you want for a price that you are completely happy to pay for it. And we have a wonderful relationship where you can call me and be honest with me, and I can call you and be honest with you. That's why that change makes sense to me, because that relationship is way easier and way more fun and much more rewarding for both parties than, well, the HOA board just has a new president again. Guess we got to go back and explain again why we charge what we charge. So
nobody loves that conversation.
Right, exactly. So it is remarkable. Two things happen when one of our customers moves. We typically go with them to their new house, and we stay at their old house with the new buyer because the customer has talked us up. It's pretty awesome. So was it stressful?
Are you the account manager? Like, you talk about how the client can call you. Do you mean you?
When I say you and we, I'm talking about the company. Every customer, every single customer, whether it's just a lawn care customer or a one-time spring mulching customer, every single person gets a letter signed by me, from me, with my phone number and my email on it, and says, if you're not happy, I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
And we get all of our customers, initial customers, you get a survey with your invoice. It's a little old-fashioned because it's still handwritten, but you get a survey. And if that survey, it's 1 to 5, 5 being the best, and if it's not all 5s, you get a handwritten note from me that says, hey, I'm really sorry we didn't hit all 5s on your survey. Here's my card. Give me a call. If it's really bad, I will pick up the phone and call them. I usually leave it in the customer's hands to call me back, because there are people, a lot of people actually, that just don't do all fives.
Yeah.
I'll get all fours, and I'll call them, and I'll send a note. I'll get an email back that says, yeah, I just don't do fives. So yes, people can absolutely get a hold of me. But our sales team, they are the de facto account managers they're the customer relationship managers for their properties. And it works really well. They're very intimately involved with these customers and with these properties. And they're also commissioned. So it behooves them to really be paying attention and taking care of their clients.
How many calls a year do you get from that letter or that card?
Not many, maybe 20, 25.
Well, that's not none. So two a month.
Yeah, maybe 2 a month. But, 50% of those are people calling and thanking me, saying that things went great and just letting me know, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone take advantage of it and they just turn you into their account manager?
No. And I think that goes back to the way our business is structured. They know that the relationship is with their salesperson.
Yeah.
And the salesperson can come back to me anytime they want. And we can talk through challenges and struggles or positives, whatever it is. I get that a lot. Also, I'll get an email from one of my sales guys and be like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith want me to tell you that Andy and Owen did a phenomenal job. And so at the next safety meeting, we'll call out Andy and Owen in front of everybody and say, hey, we got a phone call. You guys are knocking it out of the park. Thank you very much. So it's part of that culture. So no, I don't get people calling me.
Got it. I think part of how you've gotten there is because from what I gather, from what you've told me, is that you've learned to delegate and not micromanage how somebody does something. And I don't mean necessarily how they prune, but how they go about. I mean, I'm assuming it's bigger decisions that they're making and how they're running things. Is that true? Were you always that way? And if I was observing your company, how would I see that playing itself out?
I am not currently a micromanager, and when you are not the expert at something, you should not be telling other people how to do it. And I am not the expert. I have opinions, I have ideas, but those mostly relate to operational efficiencies. How can we load and unload our trucks more effectively? How can we keep the property cleaner? Not the pruning individually. We have people who that's what they do, love, passionate about. I'm never going to tell that person what to do. I'm going to ask them, why are you doing that? Because I want to know, because I do occasionally go out and try to wreck my own landscape. So yeah, I think a big part of it is that I don't micromanage. Part of it is because I am not going to insert myself in a place that I don't belong. If I'm not the expert, I should keep my mouth shut. And I think the other part is that we don't, if something goes wrong, we don't yell and scream and pull our hair out. We stop and we have a conversation. We have a conversation with the designer, the salesperson. We have a conversation with the crew that was on site. We have a conversation with the property owner if it's warranted. And we try to understand what happened, identify the challenge or the issue, discuss it, talk about what went wrong and what we could probably do differently in the future. And then we move forward with a solution. And sometimes, what does the military say? If you do anything 3 times, it should have a procedure. And we, without overburdening ourselves with procedures, which you can definitely do, we try to make sure that we're really conscious and deliberate about understanding what went wrong and avoiding it, and not pointing fingers, but asking why and what can we do differently. And because we all act that way, people feel empowered to sort of make decisions. Like I said earlier, even and I use the string trimmer guy as an example, and that's probably a bad thing to do. Anybody on our staff can raise their hand and say, that doesn't look quite right. Should we stop and look at that a little bit more? knowing that the worst possible outcome is nothing comes of it because it's not an issue. No one is going to yell at them and say, like, look, man, we got to get this done. Stop pointing stuff out. Like, no, that doesn't happen. Now, you back the truck into the barn wall 4 times, someone's going to say something to you.
I'm assuming you're just making that example up.
Well, just the other day, we were breaking up the salt pile and the loader shifted and the bucket went through some sheet metal on the side of one of our buildings. Not the end of the world. And that's a great example. The guy that was running the machine, skilled operator, knows what he's doing. It was just one of those things. Perfect situation. what am I going to say? Don't break the salt pile up. There's nothing I could do. He feels terrible. Hey man, the building's integrity is fine. You understand what happened. I understand what happened. We'll move on. We'll fix it. Everything's fine. The only procedure that could possibly come out of a situation like that is just one person runs the machine in that tight quarters, which is kind of what we were doing already. But so that's a good example of, stuff does go wrong. Absolutely. It's all how you respond to it.
Yeah.
And we work really hard to be fair and deliberate and not scream and yell. And I don't like to micromanage. It's a headache. I mean,
You're not really a screamer or yeller anyways, are you? Or are you? Not that I know.
I don't know. My dogs might disagree. When they run away, I yell at them. No, not generally. I can get it. I can have a little bit of a temper. When I first got into things, I mean, I'm 50. I just turned 50. You mellow out over time. You understand what is actually important, what warrants getting your blood pressure raised over. And it's more fun when you don't yell for everyone.
Any other lessons you've learned along the way that you think would be unique or interesting to share?
I think going back to you asked the question about how painful it was to sort of divest ourselves of commercial. And it was not a wholesale move. We didn't sell the commercial work or anything like that. We just, like I said, we kind of divested ourselves over time. As we got more savvy as business operators, and that's me primarily, as I got more savvy, I understood what was important for me to be looking at, the metrics that mattered. And when I saw something that wasn't performing, we would sit down together as a management group and say, okay, does this make sense? Like, the revenue is great. Everybody likes revenue, but top line is not ultimately what turns the lights on.
Yeah.
And so I started to understand that I needed to go back to these customers and say, you know what, we really enjoy working for you. In most cases, this is where we need to be. And if you can't meet us there, then we're going to have to look at other options, which don't involve us. Meaning you're going to have to, Mr. Customer, go find somebody else to do your work. And we let the customer self-select and say, you know what, we're not paying that price. And be like, okay, if I can't get this price, the work isn't worth it to me. So I'm walking away. And that was hard. That was very, very hard for me, because I did for a long time equate revenue with success, top line revenue with success. But the business has changed dramatically, and I have learned, and I have helped our team understand that it is okay sometimes to say no, to say, we can't make this work where both you and I are going to be satisfied with the relationship. And I think I learned that a little bit from Rotary. I've been involved in Rotary for many years. And Rotary has something called the 4-way test, which I'm ashamed to say I can't quote directly right now. But essentially what it says is, if it's not a win for everyone in all aspects, then maybe it shouldn't happen, and you shouldn't try to force it. And it's okay to have that conversation. If we sit down and we're working on a design and your budget is $100,000 for an outdoor living space and we're coming in at $200,000, you either need to pull something out of there or find somebody else who's going to do the work for you, because we're not going to reduce our standards to give you what you want just so we can do the work. We want to do work that we're proud of, that we know is going to last, that we don't have to come back and fix. And that has real value. And so learning that, understanding that it's okay to say no and okay to walk away from business that isn't good for you and isn't good for the customer, that took me a long time to figure out. And I think it is a huge part of our success. The sales team that's with me now, two of them were here when I purchased the business. And one of them was a young man, relatively new to the sales role. He come from a production background. He'd done some design and things like that for another company that went out of business, tellingly. And he was hard. It was difficult for me to get him to understand that we don't want all of every work. We don't want every single job. We only want the stuff that works for us.
Yeah.
Once he got that, he's sold over $1 million the last 3 years in a row. One guy, no support.
Yeah. I think it's hard when you're new at selling. The message that they might be hearing from you is, wait, you want me to go forwards and in reverse, but how do I know when to go in reverse and when to go forwards? It could sound like a mixed message to a new person.
I think the message to the new person is, again, it goes back to, it has to be a win for us and for the customer. Can we deliver what the customer is requesting in a way that allows us to be efficient and profitable? And so our software that we use allows us to see that in real time as we're building proposals. Our numbers don't lie, and now we've been on this software system since 2018. So our historical data is very good and very strong. And so we use the winter months. We call it the 40 days of winter, where we are in the system and really scrubbing our numbers and understanding things. And each salesperson is responsible for looking at their past year's work to see where they maybe could improve, bringing things to us and saying, look, we keep designing this curved sitting wall, and every time that performs poorly, every time we install, maybe we need to revise how we've got that built in the system so that we can do a better number. Yeah. And so when a new person comes in, and we did just hire a new sales consultant, when a new person comes in, they're landing in that environment. They already have that built-in opportunity for success. And so for some of them, then it is just giving them the right words to use and helping them understand when to use those words. Not everybody gets it. Certainly not everybody gets it at the same pace. But if you are careful and diligent, people get it. And then they see how empowering it is to be 100% comfortable. I'm handing you this proposal for X amount of dollars, and I know it is rock solid. I got nothing to guess about.
You have some interesting hobbies you were telling me about, or kind of a approach to vacationing and hobbies. Can you share with the audience?
Yeah. So I've been a lifelong cyclist and skier. Kind of grew up on bikes and skis. My mother grew up in Vermont, so I was fortunate to get to go to Vermont and learn how to ski. And we still go back there frequently as a family. And it was always pretty standard. I think what you're probably referring to is the ski touring, which involves skiing uphill, if that makes any sense. So you take regular alpine skis like that you would use to go downhill, and you put something called a skin goes on the bottom of the ski, and it turns it into almost like a cross-country ski where it will slide forward, but when you go to take a step, the ski kind of locks into the snow and allows you to walk uphill with the skis on. Without getting too wonky. It is a crazy workout. Like, your heart rate is up in the 140s the whole time you're going uphill. It's just insane. You're sweating through everything. It's 2 degrees outside, and it's awesome. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. And then you get to ski down these areas where not everybody else gets to ski because you had to hike to get there. So I do that. And I also, when I say cyclist, my first love is mountain biking, being in the woods. So I go mountain biking, and I'm really lucky to get to do both of those things with our son, who's 19 and regularly kicks my butt.
I bet he does.
And now he's going out to school. He's in school in Utah, so he's way above sea level. So when he gets back to the East Coast, he's even more of a beast, which is really annoying.
Dang. Where's
Yeah.
he going to school?
He goes to a very small liberal arts school called Westminster in Salt Lake City, which is very conveniently and totally by his choice about a half an hour away from some of the best ski resorts in Utah.
Now, Utah has some definitely unique things about it. Why did he choose Utah?
The skiing.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it wasn't the
primarily.
religion or anything else.
No. This school is not. It is not a religious school. It's not affiliated with any religion. And it's small. He's like me, not a great student, a little ADD, and so it's a small school, very close knit community, and he just finished his first freshman semester, and he's kicking butt. Made dean's
That's
list.
awesome.
I'm going to brag a little bit.
I went to business school in Europe, 2 years of school there. And I went to school with an Austrian, and I went to visit him over winter break. And he took me, what'd you call it, ski touring?
Probably, yeah. If you had to like hike around,
We had these skis. I think they were like real skins we put underneath them, and the back of the skis could lock and unlock.
yeah, yep.
And
So your heel can lift out of the binding.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we went all the way up the mountain, and he made us carry each our own huge jug of tea. I'm like, what do we need that for? But when we got to the top, after being drenched with sweat, I was freezing. And I drank the whole thing of tea and half of his tea. And then we skied down, I guess, I'm not a great skier, but I was falling down a lot. But, following him down this Austrian peak in untouched snow, and it was amazing.
yeah, it is. That sounds awesome. That sounds like I would like to go and do exactly what you just described, and it's fantastic. And being outside in that environment, I mean, if anybody else who's listening has been to the Rockies or the Canadian Rockies or in Europe in the Alps or the Dolomites, oh, it's so breathtaking. Yeah, I could be out there all the time.
So you did your trip in the Dolomites, which is northeastern Italy, part of the Alps.
Yep.
But everyone speaks Italian there, I guess.
Italian. Some have a German dialect, and then there's the local dialect is called, I believe it's called Latin, which is a completely unique dialect. There are some of these valleys in the Dolomite region that were up until recently, probably shortly after World War II ended, they were completely isolated. If you in the wintertime especially, you couldn't get from one valley to the next, and so these dialects have persisted in these areas. And yeah, my wife took me there to mountain bike for my 50th birthday, and so I went with a group of friends that I've done some trips with before, and we went and mountain biked all around the Dolomites. It was unbelievable. And the other cool thing about that whole region is it's all connected by ski lifts, even in the summertime. I mean, you can start off in your hotel and you can do a 40-mile loop, and you're connected. You're dropping into these different valleys on ski lifts. Oh, it's fantastic. Love it. I want to go back.
So do you mountain bike uphill or only downhill?
I prefer both. Yeah, I like to climb. I'm a little weird that way. I don't mind climbing.
Yeah.
I like a workout, Jeffrey. I really like to sweat. I like to work out.
Okay. Good to know, Ted. Good to know. That's funny. So you're also involved in the PLNA or PNLA?
Well, you need to know this because you're going to be one of our guests soon. The Pennsylvania Landscape and Nursery Association, PLNA, PLNA.com if anybody out there is interested. And I don't know if you'll have a link on your in the notes to the event that we're doing. We have our 120th anniversary celebration coming up. And it will be held at Longwood Gardens in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. And I think probably a lot of people who are listening have heard of Longwood Gardens. It's one of the preeminent public gardens in America, certainly, and I think it ranks nationally or internationally. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. So we're very fortunate to have be holding our celebration there. And like I said, you, Jeffrey, will be one of our keynote speakers, which we're thrilled about. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you there. And yeah, it's going to be an awesome opportunity, some educational opportunities. So continuing education credits for people who are PLNA members, who have like PCHs and things like that. But then also just some really interesting speakers. We'll have I have some notes here I'm going to read. We do have the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, will be speaking. He's a really interesting and knowledgeable guy. And then the history of Longwood, which was originally a DuPont garden. So that's super cool. And then the landscape architect, Donald Pell, who's got a pretty good following. I think he's primarily known in the southern United States and mid-Atlantic, but he's a very, very interesting guy. He will be speaking. And then some other things like, garden trends for 2024 from a company called Garden Media, whose owner is one of our board members as well at PLNA. So yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. And that's February 21st and 22nd. So really excited about that. Excited to see you. I don't think I've seen you. Gosh, it's been at least 10 years when you stopped by my office here. So really excited about that. And,
yeah, me too.
The PLNA for me I've been involved now for 7 or 8 years, something like that. And I alluded to it earlier. It's just the networking opportunities are so valuable. It's a statewide association, so I don't have to worry about, calling up one of my competitors right down the street, or I should say peers right down the street, who I do have cordial relations with pretty much all of them. But I can call somebody who does exactly what I do in Pittsburgh, and we're never going to compete for the same customer. And I can ask very blunt questions about what they do, why they do it. I got the idea for Total Care from a guy in Pittsburgh who was on the board, and we got to talking. They do only residential. They mow no grass. They don't plow any snow. All they do is residential maintenance. And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. Tell me more. And he told me everything, because I'm not going to open a Pittsburgh branch. That's almost 4 hours away.
Yeah. Well,
so that networking is huge.
It sounds like the peer groups that I run, the way you describe it.
I think if you use it now, just like anything that you choose to be involved in, you have to participate. You have to put yourself out there, which is why I'm on the board, why I serve on a committee. I'm a trustee for the foundation. You have to be involved in order to get benefit. You can't just pay your membership fee and then complain about why nothing ever happens because you don't ever do anything but look at the website. It is exactly like a peer group where you need to be involved. You need to forge those relationships, ask the questions, find the people that you really get along with, and work with them, learn from them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a lot like, and I've never been involved in a formal peer group before, actually. Probably be chagrined to hear me say that.
That's all right. I think one of the differences is, we do a lot of literal benchmarking with paper, and, we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty and numbers. So I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to coming to Longwood Gardens. I've always wanted to visit. I've had the opportunity, but haven't visited. So I am excited to do that and to speak at PLNA. And I know the association, 8 years ago, kind of went down a bit, and now it's coming back up. So, as really many associations did. So I'm excited to be part of this great anniversary that you're about to celebrate.
Well, we're really excited to have you. And you're absolutely right. We are experiencing a bit of a membership resurgence, which is good. Like you said, especially over COVID, a lot of associations have dwindled. There are some amazing landscape associations, primarily in the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota. They have amazing associations and just huge memberships.
Yeah.
And PLNA has struggled. This will be the first time we've done a in-person get-together in several years. I want to say 6 years. So we're planning already for next year to continue doing this, and hopefully have somebody of your caliber as our keynote then as well. So yeah, it's a big deal. We're very excited.
Excellent. Excellent. You're allowed to bring me back twice as long as there's good weather.
Okay,
I
good. Yeah.
remember the first time I spoke at PLNA, it was in the middle of what is it? College Town?
Oh, State College.
State College.
Yeah,
And
where Penn State is.
I drove from Connecticut in the middle of a snowstorm. Oh my God. In a terrible car. It was a nightmare. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you quickly realize how big a state Pennsylvania is when you're driving through it in the snow.
Yeah. All the way to the center of the state. Hey, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing sort of your strategy and philosophy. And I will be there soon, and we'll meet in person.
I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for supporting the PLNA. And yeah, we'll see you in just a few weeks.